Fellow Kenyans, Steve Mbogo here. Now, there's an issue that needs our thorough discussion, and this issue is pertaining the government's plan to release GMO mosquitoes into the environment. Now, Kenyans need to understand that the agenda to release mosquitoes all over the world is an agenda that is spearheaded by the World Health Organization and private entities such as the Mosquito Organization, owned and run by Bill Gates. Now, the government in itself is saying that it's going to release these mosquitoes to help combat infections such as malaria. But on looking and doing research further on matters to do with these GMO mosquitoes have been released in several countries some years back. These are programs that started in Mexico, Peru, Fiji, Colombia, Brazil, and Indonesia. Specifically in Brazil, GMO mosquitoes were released to combat what we call dengue fever. But apparently, after the release of the mosquitoes, dengue fever went up to about 400% more infections rather than curing the disease. Later on, the World Health Organization started vaccine mandates to combat what we call dengue fever. Today, as we speak in America, GMO mosquitoes were released in states such as Oxford, and the main intention was to combat malaria. Now, you have to understand that in America, malaria was last seen or traced in the year 1990s. But the funny thing today, there are two major infections that have become popular to an extent that some states are preferring what we call lockdowns. One of the diseases is malaria in itself. The second disease that is spreading in America today is a very rare condition that has no cure, and that is called encephalitis, which is basically the swelling of the brain. Now, we need to understand, and the government needs to understand, that its key obligation is to protect its citizens. We don't understand where the government is gearing up all these agendas of the West without consultations of its citizens, without protecting its citizens. And I'm speaking from a point of view where most of us who are vaccinated with the COVID vaccine have developed various and different complications, from cardiovascular diseases to immunology disorders to myocarditis to blood clots. Now, the government needs to understand that its recent announcement of launching of the Mpox vaccines by December of this year is also an agenda that is spearheaded by the same globalists I'm talking about. We need to understand that today in the world there's a big agenda, and that agenda is the depopulation agenda. We will not sit back and watch the government use Kenyans as guinea pigs for these tests in Africa. It is a time Kenyans have to come united and understand that it is our right to protect our lives, to protect our children's lives, and to protect the future of this country. So I want to speak to the government categorically that it is time you wake up and understand that these agendas that these people, these globalists are pushing towards you to implement these involuntary vaccinations. We are seeing involuntary vaccinations today all over schools, all over churches, and in rural areas. So the government and the Ministry of Health should really review these vaccine mandates being spearheaded in this country. As I've said earlier, today doctors in the world, including doctors from the World Health Organization and some of the biggest companies that were providing and producing these vaccines, such as Pfizer, today they are openly saying that they did mistakes and some of the vaccines were not in order. So I want to urge the government today not to sacrifice Kenyans, not to accept these agendas being spearheaded in this country at its watch. Today it is evident, and most doctors, both independent and I've said even doctors from World Health Organization, it is evident today that most of the COVID vaccines were what we call nanolipid vaccines, which are mRNA vaccines that do not leave the body. And these are vaccines that create what we call spike proteins, hence creating those blood clots. So I urge the government, I urge the Ministry of Health to wake up and protect its citizens. And it is time Kenyans, even you yourselves, do not accept to fall into this trap without proper consultations and proper understanding from the Ministry of Health. Wake up, Kenyans, before it's too late. Thank you.